Heyo, welcome Devils fans. I'm your host Bill Botch, and welcome to The Trap. On today's episode, we have my first guest, the one that made it all happen, literally, my dad. And it's only fitting. Hockey has been something that has kept me and my brother and my father together every night. We talk about the Devils. We shoot texts to each other during the games, like I'm sure many of you do. And we've used it to bond since I was a young kid, going to games at Brendan Byrne. It is opening week of hockey season. It feels like we haven't watched the Devils play a meaningful game since last November. So I'm really excited to see what the team brings, and it's nice to have a fresh start. There's a lot of people that have the Devils on that playoff bubble cusp, but before we get into all that, we do a preview of the season. Dad, how are you?
Good. How you doing, Billy?
Good. Hanging in there. Just got done playing some soccer in the backyard with the kids, and
nice.
Yeah, and we're getting ready to. I'm getting ready to watch the Ranger game.
Yeah,
but
let's go Tampa.
Growing up, we had season tickets. We had half season tickets. And we started in like 1993, 1994. And it was cool. We had seats at like center ice, lower level. They were right next to the press boxes, which were these like white boxes, like 19 rows up. And it was cool because we got to see a bunch of celebrities. We got the commissioner, Gary Bettman, used to sit there, and Dennis Leary and Barry Melrose. All kinds of people used to hang out in that area because it was for the press. But I know a lot of the guys that cover the Devils now are a little bit younger than me. So I have a feeling most of them are in their like early 30s or late 20s. And I can tell you that things were so different. We've been going to games for so long now. Things were so different back then. It was it was a lot more of a violent crowd. I could tell you that. I mean, Dad, how many games were we at where the Devils would play the Flyers and people would be beating the hell out of each other in the upper deck? And I mean, fights all over, right?
And my signature line to you was, watch the game.
Yeah. Pay attention to the game. Watch the game. And I would be like, there's literally like 20 people fighting up there. How could I not be like at least a little distracted by that? But, oh man, we used to see some funny stuff. We were going to games so long ago, and that you used to smoke cigarettes in our seats.
I did. And then they forced all the smokers out to the concourse. Like, that made a difference, and people, weren't smoking cigarettes at the seats. And
that was much healthier when you had to
at those round things are the entrances you walked outside.
It was a different time, to say the least, but
a different time.
It was funny. Everybody used to walk up to the stairs at the top of the concourse to smoke cigarettes. Geez, that sounds barbaric nowadays, but that's just the way it was. But we got to do a lot of cool things, and we got to see a ton of cool games. Let's just going down memory lane really quick. I remember one of the games that we were at. We were at the game where we showed up to a game and Marty Brodeur wasn't playing, and I was obviously disappointed. He was, one of my favorite, if not my favorite player at the time. I was a young kid, and Corey Schwab was in net. And about halfway during the game, a fight breaks out down by the other end of the ice. They're playing the Islanders, and Corey Schwab skates down and beats the living hell out of Tommy Soderstrom. Do you remember that?
I do remember that. That was, it not only was Peluso and McKay beating up people, but to watch, that's where Corey won my heart there.
Yeah, he split Soderstrom open. There was blood everywhere, and we were going crazy. So we got to see Brodeur, and we got to see Corey Schwab beat up a goalie. So that was a memorable moment. We were also at a game where they were playing the Buffalo Sabres in the playoffs, and towards the end of the game, someone and we were right behind the Sabres bench. We were like, what? It was like 19 rows up, I think. And someone threw a beer onto the Sabres bench, and the players started coming over the glass and fighting the crowd in our section. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. It was let's move up, boys. Let's move up.
So we've seen some wild stuff back in the day. We were talking last night, and we were saying how funny it was. Darius Kasparaitis was one of my favorite players growing up. He was a little guy. I'm not the biggest guy by any means, and he played a really physical game, and he kind of had Eric Lindros's number, which I always appreciated. But one of the games he was playing for the Islanders, and they had just lost to the Ottawa Senators the night before. And Ottawa was an expansion team at the time. They'd won like maybe literally like a dozen games or 12 games or 13 games, something like that. And he gets into a fight and he's getting escorted off the ice, and we're hanging out by like the tunnel where they're throwing him out. And we're all chanting Ottawa, Ottawa, and heckling him. And he gave me the finger. And he gave us the finger, and we, I was like literally 11 years old, and that was like the highlight of the year. He instantly went from being one of my favorite players to like shot him into superstar status. I loved him even more, being a Jersey guy, giving me the finger. I really appreciated that and thought that was funny.
That was funny. That was funny. We could taunt the other team so bad for them to flip us the bird.
Yeah, yeah. When you start knowing that you're getting under their skin, that always gives you a little feeling of satisfaction. But anything else stick out to you before we move on to the
Barry
season?
Melrose. We were right next to where all the broadcasters were, and Barry, in between periods, all the kids are running up and they're bringing stuff for him to sign, and he's the celebrity with a mullet, and he takes a look down at your little brother and he goes, "Do you want my autograph?" And Kyle's like, "No, we had aisle seats then." Kyle's like, "No." He goes, "Do you know who I am?" And Kyle goes, "Yeah." And he was like, he punked him.
Yeah, he was not impressed by Barry Melrose. What was cool was Kyle and I, my younger brother, he's 4 years younger. So let's just say I was 12, he was 8. And we would hang out for warm-ups and watch the guys warm up. And we always kind of stood in the same spot. And it was right where Claude Lemieux would always hang out when he was warming up. And Claude Lemieux used to throw my brother a puck at every game. And it was awesome because there'd be a bunch of other kids there and everybody would be looking for a puck. And Claude Lemieux and my brother kind of had this thing. And I never got one. And I was standing right next to him. But he always hooked Kyle up with a puck. And he was obviously extremely clutch for us in all those playoff runs and won a Conn Smythe Trophy with the Devils and went on to become a legend. But this year, we're trying to get ourselves back into the playoffs. And we have a lot to go over with the team. Big news today, Nico Hischier was back on the ice. He obviously he left the game 6 minutes into his first preseason game with cramps. These were apparently very bad cramps that put him on the IR. Obviously, he had some sort of strain in his hamstring, but he came out and he skated for a half hour today. And then it was encouraging because one of the things that I brought up in the last episode was you hate to see him rush back a hamstring. That's not something that you want to push because it'll end up lingering and can get worse. And it's just the beginning of the season. You don't want to see him miss a ton of time. And that's exactly what he said after the practice. He said, "Hey, listen, it's a long season. I don't want to put myself in a situation where I want to be in there just as bad as anybody, but I don't want to put myself in a situation where I could re-aggravate it and then have this drag on to be a long-term thing." So that was encouraging to hear. He said he's day-to-day. There's a lot of things that can happen between now and 48 hours from now, from Thursday night. They made the roster cuts yesterday. One of the things that came to a surprise to everybody was that Simone Nemec made the team and Kevin Bahl was sent down to Utica. Now, it sounds to me like that is some sort of paper move, roster move, and that in reality, Bahl could end up coming up by tomorrow night. Thursday night, and I don't expect Nemec to play, really, to be honest with you. I think Brendan Smith is going to play, especially versus the Flyers, who really they're not expecting much from the team this season. And John Tortorella is the kind of guy who gets his team up for games, and they're going to come out and they're going to play hard and they're going to finish their checks and they're going to play tough. And a guy like Brendan Smith might be a good guy, a veteran presence to have on the back end to protect your players in case the game gets a little funky and goes a little south. So there's a couple roster moves that people were. I think Bahl not making the team was the biggest surprise, but they talked to Simone Nemec and they said, "Hey, listen, like, what are you going to think if you get sent down to Utica before opening night?" And he said, I expect it, and it's not that big of a deal. He just wants to get the most amount of ice time, and obviously down in the AHL is where that's going to happen. But what did you think of Nemec and Bahl in the preseason?
I think that Bahl played better. I think Nemec is going to be a great hockey player. He's got a great stick, really good on defense, and he looks like the calmest, coolest guy with the puck. No matter how many guys are on him, I think he's going to be good. But I think for cap reasons and everything else, they probably shouldn't play him more than 9 games this season. Kevin Bahl is definitely more game ready. He's probably doesn't have the offensive talent that Simone has, but he's a solid shutdown D, which is something that we need.
Yeah, and I think, what's the best part about the whole thing is you have these three, and it's about to be four young defensemen between, and I know they play different sides of the ice, but between Nemec and Ohutuk, Bahl, and then Luke Hughes at the end of the season, you do have John Marino on the right side that's going to be your third pairing right-hand D. I would dare somebody to go out and find me a right-handed third pairing defenseman that's as good as John Marino. I think that was a huge trade that's going to pay off big time for the Devils. And it really solidifies their back end. What it does is it's going to insulate these kids, and it's going to allow them to limit their ice time, put them in a position to where if they make a mistake, you're not going to be really shooting the team in the foot because you have a nice. Marino's not even just a stay-at-home defenseman; he's just very good defensively. He's a good skater, good puck mover. So it kind of it's the best case scenario to rotate in and get some of these young kids some good ice time as a professional. Now, obviously, last year the biggest Achilles heel of the team was the goaltending, and they bring in Vitek Vanacek, who split the net last year with Samsonov in Washington, and he had a good defense in front of him. To be honest with you, I was kind of unsure as to how Vanacek would look, but I tell you what, he looks very sound. He looks very smart. He's square to the puck. He doesn't give up many rebounds. And then you have Mackenzie Blackwood, who's coming off of an injury last year. He's kind of had a rough 2 seasons. He dealt with the COVID stuff. He dealt with the heel injury. He went out. He got a new agent. What do you think about the Devils' goaltending for this upcoming season?
I think it looks good. I think we finally, if Blackwood could play the way we know he can, I think Vanacek's gonna give him a real run for his money for the 1A spot. I'm predicting that he starts against Philly, and they spin it. They let Blackwood start at home. Um, he's played solid. The guy played solid, and to be fair to Blackwood, he's played solid too. He's healthy. He's big frame. We know he could play. We know he could play well. He's just got to be consistent.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing with him is I hate throwing a guy out there who's supposed to be a franchise goalie when you kind of don't know what you're going to get from the guy, and he has shown cracks in his mental ability and toughness throughout the past 2 seasons. I kind of worry about just not knowing what you're going to get from him on a night-to-night basis, and I think Vanacek looks a little more. At least you're going to get average goaltending out of him. You kind of know what you're going to get. But I am curious to see who they put out there on opening night and if that causes any problems with Blackwood moving forward.
Yeah, Blackwood's got to get some amnesia. All the good goalies shrug it off. They don't let soft goals bother them. And I think that's one thing that he needs to work on. When he lets up a soft goal, he can't get down on himself. You could just see it in his demeanor that he looks like it's going to bother him for the rest of the period.
Yeah, he definitely does. He gets a little rattled. But he's the guy that could come out and win you a game, or he could lose you a game. I'm curious to see how he reacts. Elliot Friedman had his podcast, and he was saying that there's no goalie in the league that has more pressure on him right now than Mackenzie Blackwood. He's going into a contract season, and the Devils have a lot of high hopes, and if they're going to get to where they need to be and be a playoff bubble team or in the running to make the playoffs, they're going to need Blackwood to step up and play a good solid game. So, I even think before last year, before he didn't want to get vaccinated and was kind of one of the only 2 or 3 players in the league that didn't get vaccinated, he had a lot of eyes on him, a lot of pressure on him. And I think I even said to you, I said, he's probably never been in a situation before to where people are not hoping that he fails, but if he does fail, he's going to have that much more weight on his shoulders, and he's probably never been in a situation like that before. So we'll wait and see what happens. What is good is that our defense in front of him looks significantly better. You're going to run out Siegenthaler, who signed a 5-year deal for a little over $3 million. And he came out publicly and said that he was willing to take less money because he wanted the team to be able to build a better team around him. And he wanted to be able to win. He's obviously he's from Switzerland, so he's familiar with Nico Hischier. They played on the World Junior team together. But what are your thoughts on Siegenthaler?
Siegenthaler is a good defenseman. I mean, he takes the body. He plays a little heavy on the boards. He's a shutdown D guy, and I love. He's like one of the old time Devils that we used to have, like Dano used to play, or
like a Jason Smith or something.
Just being a good defensive defenseman.
Yeah, and he's going to allow Dougie to jump into the play, and I think Dougie came out and he had a really good first month of the season last year, but he did take that puck to the face and he broke his toe, and he didn't look like the same player. He had a very disappointing year as far as if you're Dougie Hamilton, as far as that goes. But he has looked good in the preseason. Are you expecting him to bounce back this year?
Oh, absolutely. If you look at him, he looks like he's 5 years younger than he did last year. I mean, he's skating fast and, putting the puck to the net. He's playing really well. I think our defense is definitely on the upswing. It's a whole lot better than it was 3 years ago. I mean, Severson looks great this year. He's playing where he should play now.
Yeah, obviously, when you have guys come in, you bring in a top pairing right-handed defenseman. It allows everybody to slot into their correct positions. So, instead of Severson playing top pairing minutes, which he's not a top pairing guy, you put him down, and then he's your fourth. He's playing your second pair. And he's playing in the right caliber. Now he's slotted correctly, and you put him against where you put him where he's supposed to be. Obviously, he's going to look a lot better now. Now Severson is a tough situation, and we're gonna get into him in a little bit. But obviously, this is the last year of his contract. The Devils go out and draft a right-handed defenseman at Nemec at number 2 overall. They go out and they make a move and they get John Marino. So Severson looks like he's kind of losing his place. Now he's played one of the most amount of games for any New Jersey Devils defenseman in the history of the team. And he's only 28 years old. He's a big dude. He could play the power play. He could play the penalty kill. He has offensive ability. And I'm curious to see what happens with him moving forward as the season goes on. So we'll get into him in a second, but let's get into what do you think about Jesper Bratt? Now, Jesper Bratt, he goes, me and you argue about this all the time.
All the time.
Jesper Bratt's last deal, he waited until literally the last minute before he went to arbitration with the team in order to get his 1-year deal done. He's going to have a lot of pressure on him to now live up to that. There's a rumor that he got an 8x8 deal offered and he turned it down. Now, if you're him, you're on a prove it deal. What happens if Jesper Bratt starts out slow and doesn't put out the numbers, which last year was obviously a career year for him, and doesn't put up the numbers that he does? What do you think that is going to do as far as his motivation, whether or not he's going to be happy? Where do you see Jesper Bratt landing as far as his next contract? If the Devils will move him, you're always saying, well, his agent is tough to deal with. His agent this, and I agree that his agent sounds like he's a rookie. But at the end of the day, I believe that it's up to the player to decide what goes on with his career. What are your feelings on Jesper Bratt?
Well, my argument has always been that I think Jesper Bratt, from his rookie year, I said, wow, he looks a lot like Scott Gomez did. He's got that same kind of speedy game and he's very elusive. Personally, I think Bratt is just developing. I think he's getting better and better. I think by January 1st, he's going to have a new contract. Whoever let out the 8x8 rumor or 8x8 rumor, I don't believe it.
Hold on. So what would make you think that he's going to have a deal done by January 1st?
I think that he's going to continue playing the way he played last year. Just, looking at him in preseason, I think he doesn't look like he missed a beat all summer. He might have even got a little stronger. I don't see him taking a step backwards. I definitely don't.
I don't see it. I think he looks good too. I'm not debating that at all. He just seems like he's been very hard to deal with. It seems like he thinks he's worth a lot more than what he's obviously being paid now, which I think he is worth more than what he's being paid now for sure. But, I wonder I'm a Devils fan before I'm a Jesper Bratt fan. And I wonder, are you going to pay Jesper Bratt more than you're going to pay Jack Hughes?
Are you going to pay him more? You're going to pay him differently. I think an 8x8 deal, if he comes out and he's a point a game or better than a point a game player, they're going to want to get, that bridge deal done. And I think that he will be around that $8 million mark. And that's more than Jack Hughes.
Yeah, I wonder. I don't know.
They'll probably pay it differently. I think they'll pay it differently. I think they'll pay it in bonus or something like that. And the contracts just keep on getting bigger. Do you think that the players, Nico's our captain, and Jack's making just under Nico?
No, Jack's making more than Nico.
He's making $1 million more.
Right.
I don't think I think you read too much into that where those guys, they have egos like that. I think Hughes would like to see him get a nice big contract.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure he would. I mean, but I'm curious. I wouldn't. I hope he stays, and I hope he signs a good deal. I hope they don't overpay for him. But I would not be surprised if the Devils moved him. That is
That
I could definitely see that happening.
I would be extremely surprised that, we don't have a lot of big scorers on the team, and he could be one of those guys. He could definitely be one of those guys. And his agent has five clients, and he is the highest paid client. I think he's looking for the home run ball with him. I think that he was more of the problem than Bratt was. Bratt has openly come out and said he wants to sign a long-term deal with us.
Yeah,
I don't think he's looking for $10 million a year. Do you?
I don't know. I mean, I think he's looking for over 8. Either way, it's going to be an interesting storyline. I don't like the way that he's handled his last 2 negotiations, and I do hope that he can come out and prove it. And if he does, then he deserves to be paid. So we'll see what happens with that. Another guy who is still on his rookie contract but made the team, and I'm excited to see him. This guy's personality is one of my favorites. Is Alexander Holtz. This kid looks like he is ready to go. The Devils wanted him to work on his skating. He worked with Jesper Bratt in the offseason back in Sweden, and they wanted him to be stronger on the puck. He seems to have come into the camp. He looks a little bit lighter. He looks like his board play looks really good. He's played good along the boards. He was the second star in the game the other night. He had trouble kind of finding the net, but he was involved in a lot of scoring chances. He has a great shot, and just like we were talking about with Blackwood, he kind of lets things roll off his back. He seems very positive and very driven, and he has been a blue chip prospect since he's been about 14 years old. I'm excited to see what Alexander Holtz does on Jack Hughes' wing. What are your feelings on Alexander Holtz for this season?
I think Holtz is going to be good. I think he's going to be our top 6 guy. You were a Lucas Raymond guy. I was an Alexander Holtz guy when he was drafted. Playing with Jack Hughes, I think Hughes is going to give him plenty of opportunities, put the puck in the back of the net. And his confidence, he looks like such a positive guy to begin with. I think once he starts scoring goals and, him and Hughes together, they're going to be together for a long time. H2O line.
Yeah, and you're going to have Palat that's going to, he's going to do a lot of the dirty work and a lot of the defensive work and teach them how to play the game the right way. So I don't expect Palat to score a ton of goals, but I think he's going to make that line a lot more productive because he's willing to do some of the stuff and knows where to be on the ice.
Right.
One of the things that I'd like to go over is the Devils' power play. Now, the Devils obviously had one of the worst power plays in the league last year. The power play has been a disgrace for the past however many seasons now. And me and you kind of battle this one out too. You wanted Recchi gone. You wanted you wanted a change in the coaching staff, as did I. And I think most Devils fans did. Would you agree that if the Devils power play, which has not looked good in the preseason, looks the way first of all, where do you see the Devils power play? Do you think it's going to be in the top 50% of the league or the bottom 50% of the league?
I think if we're at the 50%, that's a huge jump from years past. I wasn't a big Mark Recchi fan. I thought we had enough talent to put the puck in the back of the net on power plays, and we just didn't. It didn't seem like we entered the zone good. If Hughes or Bratt didn't bring the puck into the zone, we had a lot of, shorthanded goals scored against us. I think we're going to be better. I think Andrew Burnett, Ryan McGill, I think those guys are going to bring, a different voice in to those guys. I mean, we have Dougie Hamilton, we have Jack Hughes, we got talent there. We should be able to score some goals.
If we don't, can we agree that we can stop blaming the coaching staff?
Yeah, but I still blame the old regime
because it's been two regimes. This hasn't just been Mark Recchi.
It has
So
been. It has been.
do you think that the Devils finish above 50% of the league or below 50% of the league?
I think we're above 50%, slightly.
I don't believe you.
I hope that we're way above. I hope that that we get to see that back and forth with Holtz and Hughes, or with Dougie and Holtz's one timer. If he's able to develop that the way Marchand or a lot of the Pasternak and stuff like that. Play the power play. If he's able to develop like that, then we're gonna be fine.
Yeah, I'm still pretty concerned because we gave up a bunch of shorthand chances in the preseason. And I think at the end of the day, you have to put the blame on the players. They're the ones moving the puck and they're the ones executing. And if you can't even connect passes, I don't care who your coach is. It's going to be tough to score some goals. Now, we have a couple situations that I want to hear. So, do you think the Devils are going to make the playoffs this year?
I do. I honestly do. I'm not being a homer. I honestly do believe Devils do make the playoffs this year. I believe that we're going to finish third in our division. Obviously, if we have a lot of injuries and stuff, that
No. We're not doing that. So this is what we're talking about. The excuses. Can we put the excuses to bed this year? I don't want to hear about how many pipes we hit. I don't want to hear about injuries. The Devils are as deep as they've ever been. Every team deals with injuries. I mean, the Capitals are dealing with injuries. The Bruins are dealing with injuries. Everyone deals with injuries.
We do, and I agree with that. But typically, your team does not play five goalies.
I understand that. We've had some bad luck, and it's been the past couple years.
It's beyond bad luck. I think it's way beyond bad luck. You look at, Nico was out. He had a broken foot. Nobody even knew about it. Dougie breaks his jaw. Jack dislocates his shoulder. It's like, it wasn't bad luck. It was like the perfect storm. Last year was a disaster, and I don't care how deep you are in your roster. When you start the season like that, it's hard to come back.
It is. But you're talking about 1 year. This has been 10 years of bad hockey. So,
well, it's like being a good goalie having amnesia. I look at the Devils. I have amnesia past last.
Okay, but my point is, can we? You're being recorded. This is on the record. Can we agree that we will stop making excuses about hitting the pipe, about blaming the coaches, and about our players being injured?
Well, I'm always gonna blame coaches. I think that we can stop that. I honestly believe our depth in defense is huge. By the end of the year, we're going to have Luke Hughes coming in with, Nemec is going to have some experience in AHL on the smaller ice. Our offense, we have players. We have depth this year, so we can put it on the players there. I think, we got Sarge on the ice directing these guys around, and Andrew Burnett. We're set. I've never been more comfortable about the Devils going into a season than I am this year.
Okay. So in order to make the playoffs, how many points do you think, what would you say would be a successful season points-wise for the Devils? What would you consider a successful season?
95 points. I think 95, 97 points.
97 points is a lot.
It is.
But sure, they'll make the playoffs if they have 97 points. Now, with that said, How many points do you think the Devils have before Lindy Ruff loses his job? No, I'm serious. Like, how many points would the Devils have to finish with for him to lose his job?
I think if we come out of the gate slow or halfway through the season, if we're not doing well, I think, you can't, I don't look at it by the end of the season. He doesn't, because I think they already have a plan for him. They didn't name him head coach. They didn't say he was losing his job. They left that up in the air. And then, Andrew Burnett kind of falls in our lap. And like I said, Ryan McGill, I think we're okay. The players loved Lindy Ruff, the young players. I mean, you look at, we didn't ruin them, but I think guys like you were saying, playing Severson in the wrong place or Zaka, not nurturing these guys, these young draft picks along and stuff. Mike McLeod, maybe. It's hard to not hit on any of your first round players. I think Ruff gave them an opportunity to make mistakes and build confidence. And I think that's the difference between, Jack Hughes, the way he's developing, and Dawson Mercer and Sharon Govich. I think that he's good for the young guys. And I think that's a big reason why they kept him in place.
Do you think that Lindy Ruff is the coach of the for the Devils? He's coming off of his contract at the end of this year. Do you think he's the coach of the Devils next year?
No, I think that he moves into a front office job. That would be my guess.
Even if they make the playoffs.
Even if they make the playoffs, I think he's done behind the bench. That's just it. That's just my feelings. My feelings is that he wants to move to the front office, even though I'd rather see a guy like Bryce Salvador, in the front office with the Devils.
Now, how do we know that Andrew Burnett is a good coach? Like, obviously, his team won the President's Trophy last year. He was kind of gifted a very, very good team. But he was let go at the end of the season because obviously Florida did not have faith in him being the head coach moving forward. He's never been a head coach before prior to this. How confident are you that Andrew Burnett is going to be the guy to where you're going to move on from Lindy Ruff and Andrew Burnett is going to be your savior moving forward?
Well, Florida was stacked last year. You're right. But you could put all the best players together and not make a good team, not have good winning seasons and stuff. You have to put a game plan in, and the guys have to believe in it and play to it, even if they're not playing to what they believe their strengths are. So I think Andrew Burnett took this team in the beginning of the year and he made a good run of it. And you get to the playoffs and it's a brand new season, and now you have coaches like Cooper and Rod Brendamar and Gallant and these guys, and they've had experience. They've been through the playoffs and they've been winners through the playoffs. They didn't have a great showing in the playoffs, and I think they kicked him to the curb. But I think what he did last year, he was left with a good team. But how many times do you see a team of superstars lose? They're just not playing together. They're playing like individuals. He made them play like a team.
Yeah, I think he did. I would agree with you there. All right, here. Now, obviously, you have Graves and you have Severson that are going to be on expiring contracts. What do you think the Devils are going to do with those two guys prior to the trade deadline?
Unfortunately, I think it's going to be Severson that gets moved because I think he's going to demand the bigger contract. And I think he's going to be the guy that teams that, that are on the bubble or want to make a good run in the playoffs, he's going to be the most attractive guy. I mean, he has, Graves is good. He doesn't have the mobility that Severson has. And I hate to see us lose him, but I think that, it frees up salary cap space, and, and we are stacked on that side with young guns.
So you think that if the Devils are going to be fighting for a playoff spot and they're going to move Damon Severson before the trade deadline?
I think they could. We're going to have to make room. We're going to have to make room in our salary cap going forward. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, but.
And we do have a lot of young talent in the pipe.
But my point is, you're going to make the playoffs for the first time. You're saying you're going to trade away your assistant captain and you're the most veteran player on the team prior to the trade deadline going into the playoffs.
I think they would do it only because of looking at the future. I don't like them doing it, but Severson's going to be looking for a longer contract, and they could probably get the most for him.
Yeah, I mean, I think both of those guys are gone. To be honest with you, it just is. That might not go over well in the room with a team who's fighting for a playoff spot down the stretch, and then you move. Severson's definitely a likable guy. I know that the players are a big fan of him. He's an important piece in the locker room. It would be tough to justify that to all these young guys trying to make the playoffs and take that next step as a team for the first time to move your most veteran defenseman.
Right, but with a lot of young talent behind, it's not the perfect scenario, but good defensemen are hard to come by. You get a lot of value for them. I think that would be I think with or without him, with or without him, with a replacement in for him, with, does Nemec play the same side as him?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think we make the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm curious. That's going to be a tough one, and that is going to be a hard one to sell to the fan base and to the locker room. But if you know that you're not going to sign him, then you can't let him walk, obviously. Now, Graves, I think, is just gone either way.
So yeah, I think.
I mean, I don't know. Severson can play the left side. I mean. But yeah, you could get a lot for a big right-handed defenseman who's kind of in his prime. I'm sure the Toronto Maple Leafs would be foaming at the mouth. I mean,
absolutely.
That's going to be a very difficult decision.
It's going to be a real tough one, but it's, they have our future. If you look at our draft class.
I understand that. I'm just saying it's going to be hard that if they finally are in the playoff hunt to unload one of your most talented guys.
Right.
Like, you're going into the playoffs, you're going to want Severson playing back there rather than a rookie playing in his first 20 games or whatever it is. You know what I mean? So that's going to be hard to justify to the team when you're saying, we want to win now. Here's, let's go win. And then you're unloading a talented veteran guy. But
do you think that we're in a win now situation now? If
you're trying to make the playoffs, yes, they have to win down the stretch.
We are going to make the playoffs. I think that we will be in a good position to make the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, they're not going to be ahead of the rest of the division to where they're guaranteed to make the playoffs, and you're getting rid of him, and you're thinking, okay, well, once the playoffs start, we're going to bring in Nemec. It's like they're going to be going down the stretch fighting to make a playoff spot, and you're going to be unloading a key piece of the team.
Right.
That's
hard. That's a hard thing to do. But at the end of the day, if you're not going to sign this guy, which I think they've already decided they've decided that they're not going to sign him, you might as well get what you can.
Yeah, I don't know.
First round pick, you're going to get a first round pick for him. Plus, do you think you'd get a first round and someone?
Yeah, you're definitely going to get a first round pick for sure. I mean, you could look at it like, well, a lot of teams, if they're trying to make that playoff push, they go out of their way and they sell off an asset in order to get a guy built for the playoffs or built for that push.
Right.
Would you be, instead of giving up an asset to get a player and to make that push, could you just hang on to the existing player that you already have?
You could, knowing that you're not going to sign him.
I don't know. But typically what they do is when they go out of their way to get the player for the playoffs and to make the push and to play in the playoffs, it's a guy that's on an expiring contract. They don't plan on him. It's a rental. You know what I mean? They don't plan on him staying anyway. So it's the same shit.
Right. I hear you.
So I have the Devils. If they're, in my opinion, if they have a successful season, the Devils will be at 90 points. And then I think that at the end of the season, if they have 84 points or less, Lindy Ruff would lose his job. And I think the Devils get off to a really, really hot start. And if they don't, I think Lindy Ruff loses his job right out of the gate.
I would have to agree with that.
So I had the Devils going 6-2 to start off the month. And I think if they go 4-4 versus a pretty weak schedule, it would be a problem for management, and it would put Tom Fitzgerald in a situation where if he doesn't make a move, the eyes are going to kind of be on Tom Fitzgerald.
Absolutely. The head's going to.
So you should be able to beat the Flyers. You should be able to beat Detroit at home. You should be able to beat Anaheim at home. The Islanders, you should be able to beat if you think you're a playoff team. San Jose, Washington without Hagelin and without Tom Wilson at home, you should be able to beat them. Detroit, okay, like you're going to lose to Colorado, and then you have Columbus. So let's say you give up one of those games that you maybe should have won. You go 6-2, but if they go 4-4 or something, the schedule doesn't get easier. You have to be able to win. You have to win the games that you should win, and then you have to sneak a couple games that you kind of didn't play so well, and you find a way to win it, and it's ugly, and you sneak a victory out if you want to be a team that makes the playoffs. And right now, we're kind of at a weird point in our conference where some teams are getting older and starting to slide, and you wonder about their health and if they can keep up, and other teams are starting to come up. So you have the Ottawas, the Buffaloes, the Detroits of the world, the Devils, obviously. And then you have teams on the other end of the spectrum, like the Boston Bruins and the Washington Capitals and the Pittsburgh Penguins. Now, I think Pittsburgh is kind of in a different league than those other two, but you get what I'm saying. There's definitely a shift of power coming, and whether or not you just wait to see how long it's going to happen. People have been talking about, people have been saying this should have happened 3 years ago. You know what I mean? And somehow these teams keep sticking around and keep making the playoffs, and it's been tough. But let's get right to it. Who do you have making it out of the East this year, playing in the Stanley Cup Finals?
Carolina. I think Carolina's stacked. I think they're top to bottom, solid, well coached. I think that they're going to be tough to beat this year.
Yeah, I would agree. Carolina is also my pick out of the Eastern Conference. I think they made they made some moves in the offseason. They're going to definitely miss Vinny Trocheck, and they're going to miss Nino Niederreiter. But, I mean, you got Sebastian Aho, Teravainen, Seth Jarvis, Svechnikov, Kotkaniemi, Marty Necas. That's a pretty stacked top six. And then you're going to have Jacob Slavin. They went out. They got Brent Burns. Obviously, size, scoring, everything else. They're pretty stacked. I like. I would have to agree with you. I like Carolina, and I like Rob Brindamore getting them ready for the playoffs. They could play a heavy game too, so I like them coming out of the East. Who's your pick coming out of the West?
If I'm picking with my heart, I think Calgary. Picking with my head, I got Edmonton. Edmonton upgraded their goalie tremendously. Calgary is good though. I mean, they picked up Huberdeau and Uyghur. They lost, losing great guys, Gaudreau and Kachuk, but they picked up Cadre, and I just love the way Daryl Sutter coached the team, and takes what he has. He's like, to me, I look at him like the Bill Parcells of hockey, like our Bill Belichick. It takes the talent that he has and plays around them. Makes a team out of them. But I think at the end of the day, it's going to be Edmonton, Carolina, and I'm hoping that Edmonton wins. I'd like to see a Canadian team, prevail.
Yeah, I mean, it was to see the Oilers go and get Jack Campbell. Obviously, Mike Smith was the Achilles heel for the team last year. He gave up a ton of soft goals. I like Edmonton. Obviously, has a ton of firepower, a ton of speed. I like Darnell Nurse on the back end. I like Edmonton too. Obviously, Colorado is the favorite, and I'm not, just to make this interesting, let's leave them off the board. So it'd be really ezy just to pick Colorado. They're the favorites to win the Stanley Cup.
But it's hard to win two years in a row, and a lot of times, a lot of the other teams that are in the playoffs that didn't make it and didn't win the cup, I mean, they're just that much more hungry than the team that's won it. So.
Yeah, I kind of think this could be a bounce back year for the St. Louis Blues. I don't think that they played to their potential last year, and I kind of like not. I don't think they're going to win the division or the conference, but I kind of like what the Kings are doing too. They have a good team. They have a ton of young talent, but yeah, if I'm not going to pick the Avalanche, I'd probably go with the Oilers too, or maybe Minnesota. So let's just say I'll take the Oilers too.
See that this comes from years of talking hockey.
Oh, jeez. All right, and who do you have winning the Stanley Cup this year?
The Stanley Cup goes to Carolina, although my heart would want it to go to Edmonton. I'd like to see Connor McDavid get a cup, just like I wanted to see, if you're in the Metropolitan Division, you hate Washington and the Rangers and Philly, but I want to see Ovechkin win a cup. I'd like to see Connor McDavid win a cup.
Well, which one is it?
Edmonton. I think I want Edmonton to win. I think Carolina would win the series. So.
Okay, so you think Carolina's going to win the Stanley Cup?
I do think they're going to win the Stanley Cup.
Yeah. It's hard to argue with that. I kind of like Carolina too, to be honest with you. It's a shame there hasn't been a Canadian team that's won a Stanley Cup since 1993. So you're going on 30 years, and obviously Connor McDavid's right in his prime, and Leon Draisaitl and Ryan Nugent-Hopkins and the rest of them. We'll see. It's going to be interesting. If they get any kind of goaltending and momentum behind them, Edmonton is going to be a very exciting place. That is going to be, but they have a ton of pressure on them. They have a lot more pressure on them than Carolina does. So
much more.
So we'll wait and see what happens. But is there anything else that you wanted to go over?
No, I think that's good. Let's go Devils, and hopefully Tampa Bay beats up on the Rangers tonight.
Yeah, so we got Devils in 48 hours, the start of the 2022-23 season. There's a bunch of people that have the Devils making the playoffs. Vegas has the Devils right outside of the playoffs. This is exciting. This is a good time to be a Devils fan. There's a lot to look forward to. We have a lot of talent in our pipeline. Now we just have to put it together on the ice. And we've been the king of the winning the offseason for quite a while now. Now it's time we put it together. And this year just feels a little different. So I'll be what we'll do is we'll record another one sometime next week. We'll get the first 2 games under our belt, and then we'll check in with you guys. But in the meantime, from the Trap, Billy Botch and his old man signing off. Go Devils.
Let's go Devils.
Words, weapons, sharpened knives, makes you wonder how the other half died. Other half died. Makes you wonder. But here come the man with a look in his eye. Fed on nothing but full of pride. Look at him go, look at him kick. Makes you wonder how the other half live. The devil inside. Every single one of us, the devil inside. Devil inside, devil inside. Every single one of us, the devil inside. Oh. Here come the world, the look in its eye. Future uncertain, but certainly slight. Look at the faces, listen to the bells. It's hard to believe we need a place called hell. Place called hell. The devil inside, the devil inside. Every single one of us, the devil inside. Devil inside, the devil inside. Every single one of us, the devil inside. Ooh. A woman with a look in her eye. She's raised on leather, with flesh on the mind. Words and weapons, sharpen the knives, makes you wonder how the other half died. The devil inside, the devil inside. Every single one of us, the devil inside.